So the plan for today is to change the transmission filter on the N1. There's actually two filters, but we'll get to that in a minute. So I've had the N1 for a little bit over 2 years now. Right after I got it 2 years ago, I changed the transmission fluid. But at that time I didn't know about the filters and stuff, or I couldn't find any information about it. But recently I found a Japanese video of a guy changing the filters in his own car. So I'll link to that in the description of this video. So from that I was able to get all the part numbers and everything. So we'll go and have a look at the part numbers and stuff now. So this is basically all the same stuff that was shown in the Japanese video that I found. So to start with, there's the oil pan gasket. I'll put all these part numbers in the description so they're easier to find. So yeah, there's the oil pan, and then there's the big filter, and this one comes with an O-ring already on it. And then there's the other filter which goes above the valve body thing, and an O-ring goes on here. So this is the O-ring for that filter. And then for the valve body, there are these 8 little O-rings. That's the part number for them. So there's 8 of them. And then there's also a Circlip for this filter which holds it in, which you can probably just reuse the old Circlip, but I think the workshop manual says to use a new one, so you might as well get a new one if you can. And then to buy all this stuff, I got it through the website called Buyee, so B-U-Y-E-E, which you can use to buy things from Japanese websites and auction sites and stuff. So I just searched for all these part numbers and I was able to find them. One of the sellers were selling these two as a pair, so that was kind of handy. And then I found another seller selling a set of this 8, which is very handy. So if you do a bit of searching, you should be able to find them. But next we'll go have a look at the instructions. So the Japanese video I saw has a pretty thorough step-by-step guide on what you're supposed to do it. But I also printed out the proper instructions from the workshop manual. So I got this a while back, which is the official workshop manual for it. Except it's very hard to navigate because it's all in Japanese and only works in Internet Explorer. But using Google Translate, I was able to find the instructions for doing it. So like you take the pan off, let out, all this stuff. The valve body comes out, and then there's this wiring and the filter and stuff, so it shouldn't be too hard. A few weeks ago I helped my dad change the transmission filter on a Commodore, so this will just be a little bit more complicated than that, I think. For the CVT fluid, you'll need one that meets the Honda HMMF standard, which is what it talks about in all the instructions. So this Penrat one is the CVT004, and on the back here it's got the Honda HMMF on it. So there's another Penrat one that is a low viscosity. That one is not the one that you want, it's just the regular one, not the low viscosity one. Okay, so to start with, if you turn the wheels all the way to the left, there's this access panel for the transmission. So if you take out those 2 top clips and this one at the bottom here, that can either swivel down or you can take it all the way out. And so there's the transmission there, and then this little bit just here where there's its kind of the hook on it, that is the dipstick for the transmission to see how full it is. I'll check that in a minute, which you're supposed to check it when it's hot, but just for the moment I'll check it while it's cold. And then the drain plug is underneath the here. Okay, so I have it jacked up now, so just under the front bumper here. So there's the engine, there's the oil filter and the engine oil drain plug, so it's extremely easy to do an oil change on this car. And then, so there's the transmission. You have to take this plastic thing off, and then, so there's like the oil pan for the transmission, and then there's a metal thing that also has to come off. Something interesting I just noticed is these belts here. There's a 4PK 890 and a 4PK 700. So I didn't know that until just now seeing the numbers on it. They seem to be in alright condition, so I'm not going to change them now, but that'll be interesting to know for the future. So under here there's the plastic guard I was just talking about. There's two plastic clips at the front, there's one here and one just down here, so you can take those out. There's another one down here, so I'll get that out in a second. Okay, so we got that other plastic clip out, but there's actually a bolt holding it in here, so we get that out. Okay, so that's that plastic guard off. And there's the sump. So as you can see, this metal support here, that'll have to come out as well to get access to the sump properly. Yeah, this car has only done I think 78,000 Ks or something, so the transmission filters are probably fine, but I just want to change them anyway to be sure, because I want this car to last as long as possible, seeing as I went all the trouble importing it. So there's 4 bolts holding that in. There's 2 down here and 2 up here, just getting this last one out. This is a Japanese electric ratchet made by Vessel. This is the first time I'm using it properly, and it's not like an impact ratchet or anything. It doesn't do anything uptight, but just for getting things in and out quick, it's really cool that it just winds itself. Okay, so now that's out. That's full access to the oil pan here. So there's the drain plug. I'll probably go and get a new washer for it later just so it doesn't leak. So this drain plug here just fits a 3/8 fitting. Might have over-tightened that slightly when I changed it before. No, I really hope this doesn't go everywhere. Take the little dipstick out so that can act as the ventilation for air to get in. Okay. So the fluid's not too dirty because I changed it 2 years ago. But of course you can't get all of the fluid out just by draining it. Not sure exactly how well that's going to show up on the video, but looking at that, it seems to have drained a little bit over 3 litres so far. Okay, so I have just loosened all these a little bit. Start taking them out. Hopefully these are all the same length. Let's just trying to avoid it making a mess, because I've got this I've got the drain pan under it still. Alright, how much more fluid is going to come out of here? My phone's ringing. Okay, so some fluid has come out. I wonder if this has ever even been changed before. It looks pretty clean in there though. I guess that's what the filter's for. Okay, so the pan's off. There's a magnet in here, which is to collect any metal filings. Noisy Land Cruiser going past. I'll clean this properly afterwards. And so there are 12 little bolts holding on the oil pan, and they are all the same, so that makes it easy to put back in. So we'll get this filter out first. I think there's only these two bolts holding it in. I've already loosened them a little bit. Don't want to lose those. Okay, that made a lot more of a mess than I was expecting, but at least it all went in the pan. Got fluid all over my hands now. So as you can see there, the cable hooks onto the filter just here. So I couldn't see that from this side. Good thing I've got a rag just here to wipe everything. Okay, so yeah, there's just two little bolts for that filter. Let's that come off. Okay, so that just unhooks from there. The O-ring for that stayed on, so that make sure the old O-ring doesn't get stuck in there. So next there's, I think some of these wires and things have to be disconnected. Okay, I wiped it with a rag just to try and stop it from dripping, and then, so in the Japanese video that I was watching, this pin right here that sticks out, I don't exactly understand why, but he put a cable tie around it, I think just so it doesn't get lost or something. So I'm going to do the same as what he did. Okay, so you can see in there, there's the cable tie on that pin. So the next thing to do is disconnect the wires from the solenoids. In the Japanese video, he had a special tool, like special pliers for doing these connectors, but just a pair of multi-grips seems to do the job. So they just slide out after squeezing them with the connector at the end. These ones here seem to be a bit trickier because they're at an angle. Don't want to damage the wires. The workshop manual says to undo this ground connection as well, and also there's a temperature sensor. I think this here, just there, is the temperature sensor maybe, because that's has to come off as well somehow. Okay, so that bolt is for the temperature the ground connection. And how does this temperature sensor come off? Okay, so I think I've worked out how it comes off. There's a little plastic tab here. You push that down, and then it slides off backwards. Okay, so that's the wires out of the way. I have to make sure they're clean before everything goes back in. So then the next thing to do is work out which bolts need to be undone to take the valve body out. Okay, so the workshop manual says to take this off first, which is what the temperature sensor was disconnected to, and then there's 6 bolts. So I think it's this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I think some of these are different lengths, so I'll try not to get them mixed up. Oh, fluid just came out of there. Okay, so that's a really long one. And that's another long one, which from a quick look it seems to be they're the same length. And so that's the thing the temperature sensor was connected to. So I'll keep those together. And yes, they are the same. Okay then, so next there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Two long ones and 4 short ones. So I think this should come out now. Somehow. There we go. Now there's going to be some pins coming out because they go in the top there, and that's where the O-rings go that I mentioned earlier. Okay, it's very hot and I think it's at least 40 degrees today, and the camera just overheated because the last few scenes were quite long and I'm recording in 4K. But that came out, and then I was just talking about the pins. So some of those are in the valve body, and then there's these 2 here that still have to come out. I've got O-rings on them. Okay, so there's an O-ring on each end. Okay, that's got an O-ring on each end as well. So that's what the 8 O-rings are for, because there's a bunch of those pins that get new O-rings. There's one here as well. And that one's a really long one. And then I think there are 2 small ones that don't have O-rings on it, but I think they already came out in the valve body. So we'll go have a look at that now and clean it up. And there's the other filter. I'll do that afterwards. I took a bit of a break to have lunch and also to get a Repco and get a new washer. So there's the plug that we looked at earlier, and I worked out it's an 18mm washer. So they didn't have any aluminium 18mm washers, so I got a fiber one instead. This one here, if it will focus well enough on it, it does look a little bit worn out with the kind of lip on it there. So it's probably best to replace it with a new one. So the 18mm fiber washer fits just fine. So yeah, 18mm is the size. And then, so I'm assuming this has never actually been replaced with before, considering the car has done less than 100,000 Ks. The previous owner in Japan probably never replaced it. And In the service schedule, I don't know when this is actually supposed to be replaced because it doesn't talk about the transmission filter from what I can tell, but it is pretty dirty, so I'll clean it up. I'll clean it with carby cleaner because that won't leave any residue or anything. And then with the cable tie thing that I was mentioning earlier, that's on here, and that's what the guy in the Japanese video did. So that connects to this and that slides along. Maybe that's the gear selector or something, and I think that cable tie is on there to stop that from sliding all the way in for when you put it back together. And then there's all these pins or pipes that I mentioned earlier. So there's 3 short ones, the third one is in here, and then this long one, and then each of them have O-rings on it, and that's what all these O-rings are for. And then there are also these 2 other pins here which don't have O-rings on it, and they go in there. They fell out. They had fallen into the oil pan here when I took it all apart. So you have to be aware of that. Yeah, I'll clean all this stuff now and then we'll start putting it back together again. Okay, so I have the 8 new O-rings here, and I've just taken the old O-rings off and given these a clean. So I put on these new O-rings just with a little bit of clean fluid on them. And then they can go back in. There's those 3. Those 3 go together. The long one goes there. And then there's these 2 other little pins that I mentioned earlier. They don't have O-rings on them. They just sit in here, so I'll have to double check, but I think the long one goes there and the short one goes there. So the workshop manual seems to mention there's 2 of these pins, or maybe a dowel is a better word for it, because there's those 3 with the O-rings and there's a long one and 2 short ones. But in the Japanese video is exactly the same as this, where there's those 3, that one and that one. And looking at the underside of the transmission, there does seem to be another little dowel, but that one doesn't seem to come out, so I'll just better leave it there, I think. So now that that's clean and back together, I'll clean the oil pan and the little magnet there, which is going to be extremely dirty. So I've just got some paper towel. I'm going to try and use just, I don't know how, oh, okay, well it's not that strong of a magnet. There's a lot of black sludge on it. So yes, definitely due for a clean, I think. Okay, so the magnet is clean now. Because I can rinse this, I'll clean it with degreaser and then it'll be ready to be put back together. Oil pan is now perfectly clean. I can put the magnet back in its little spot just there. And so that's done. The valve body is done. Now the next thing to do is go back to the car and change this filter, and then I can start putting it back together again. So this is the filter here. There's a circlip to take it out. Hopefully it'll come out just with some pointy pliers. Okay, so yeah, that worked. And that is the same as the new one I got, so I don't really see any reason why you can't reuse the old circlip. But I'll put a new one in seeing as I got it. And now to get out this other filter is probably going to make another mess with oil. Splash. Right, well there's the there's the filter. So the filter's out. Here's the new filter. I've already put the new O-ring on and with a little bit of fluid on it. It's got these little tabs on the filter here, but I don't think that matters which way it goes in. Okay, so that's in. Okay. Yep, that Circlip is in. That's the filter done. Alright, so I can put the valve body back in now. How's it going to go? Okay, so that's in. It's a little bit loose, but it's held in with one bolt. It's not going to fall out. So some of these were different lengths, so I'm trying to make sure I put them back in the right order. And then the next thing was the temperature sensor thing here. Okay, so the manual says all these bolts have to be done up to 12 Newton meters, but I'll just get them all screwed in at least to start with. This thing is so handy for doing up bolts like that quickly. And then, so yesterday I bought this, it's a Mac Pro tool, a digital torque meter. So I've got it set to 12 Newton meters. You can probably can't really see it on the screen very well at the moment. But it's set to 12 and it beeps once it reaches 12. So this is my first time properly using this tool besides testing it out yesterday. Okay, yeah, so they're all definitely done up properly now. I can take off this cable tie from earlier. And then I think I can probably put the wires back on the solenoids and the temperature sensor. Then I can put the filter back on. And I need to remember what this bolt here was for. Okay, no, I remember now. It was for the ground wire here. So put all these wires back in and the temperature sensor. And then I'll torque that as well. Okay, so everything here should be back together. I've tightened that up. Everything else is tight. I've got the new filter here. Need to put the cables through here. And then the O-ring on the end of the filter here, I just put a bit of fluid on that so it goes in. There's these two bolts to go back in here to hold the filter on. And so I just checked these filter bolts are 12 Newton meters as well. Okay, so that's all back together. That's done. That's done. Right, so now I should be able to put the oil pan back on. Okay, so I've got the new gasket. To try and get it lined up, I'll sit it on top of the oil pan and then stick bolt through on opposite corners. Okay, so I've got 3 corners in. So now I just need to get them back in. And this has to be done kind of a cross pattern shape to get it just like the force distributed evenly on the gasket. Okay, so all of the bolts are just started. Okay, and so the manual says these get done up to 13 Newton meters. Right, they're all done up now. So now I can put the plug back in. The manual says to do this up to 10 Newton meters. But that's, they're assuming you're using an aluminium washer. Because this is a fiber washer, I'm not sure if it should be a bit tighter or what, but so now that that's all done, I can put this support back on, whichever way that was supposed to go. So that way. Okay, so in the instructions that I had printed out, it doesn't have a tension listed for that, but I'll just do them up decently tight because they're part like the structural. And then I can start putting the fluid back in. I think later I'll get some degreaser and just spray under here a bit where it, where it kind of dripped down and got a bit oily. But next, it's time to put this plastic panel back on. So that plastic guard is back on. So now I think I can jack it up again, take the stands out, let it down, and then start filling it up back with fluid again. Back down on the ground again for now, but we'll have to jack it up again once it's full. So in the Japanese guy's video, he showed if you take the intercooler out, you can get to the filler plug on top of the transmission, but I don't want to be bothered doing that. So what you can do, which is in some ways easier, is in the dipstick plug, just fill it up through that, which is what we're going to do now. So to put the fluid back in, Penrite make this pump that go on top of the small bottles. So it comes with a short hose, the little spout on the end, and you press that down to pump it in. That is going to make it a huge amount easier. So there's the sensor thing going in here, and then just in front of it is where the dipstick goes in. So I've got the pump thing in there, and about 3.5 litres came out, so I'm going to just keep pumping basically this whole bottle in down to 3.5 litres, then I'll check it. And then there's a special procedure you have to do to check the level properly. Okay, so I've put about 3 litres in. I'm just going to put the dipstick in to see if it's showing on there at all. It is. It's just a little bit above the high mark. But we still have to do the bleeding procedure according to the instructions, so I'll put in a bit more. Okay, so 3 litres seems to be about the limit you can put in, because I put in a bit more and then it started overflowing, so I sucked some back out with this big syringe, and now it's back down to about the level it was before. So now I need to jack it up again, and we'll do the bleeding procedure that it says in the instructions. Okay, so the instructions say transmission fluid bleeding. Transmission fluid bleeding work must be performed when performing work that may cause air to enter the control system. This is by Google Translate, so it's not perfect. So jack it up so all the wheels can freely rotate. That's like the front wheels, this one's not four-wheel drive. Start the engine, turn off the traction control, slowly accelerate in D position, press the pedal and accelerate to about 60 kilometers or more for about 10 seconds. Release the accelerator until you've reached a creep speed. Don't touch the brakes, and repeat 3 to 5 times. So transmission fluid level check. Run the engine until the radiator warms up until the fan runs twice. Place the vehicle on a surface level, turn the wheel all the way to the left, and then check the dipstick. So there you can see there's the dipstick and there's the low and the high mark. The levels with the gauge off, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but the hot gauge between the high mark and the low mark. So yeah, basically when it's hot, get it to the high mark. Okay, so for safety, I do have it on jack stands again, and I've got both doors open in the garage, so I'm not going to get gassed out by the exhaust. Okay, so it says start engine and turn off the traction control, so start it and turn off the traction control. So traction control is off, and then put it in drive and slowly accelerate to 60 kilometers for 10 seconds or more. So it's in drive, accelerate to 60. So I've done that a few times. Now I just need to let it idle to get hot. So it's just idling with the air conditioner off, so I'm not getting confused with the air conditioner fan coming on. So it's just going to be idling for a while for it to get up to running temperature. So the fan has to come on and then go off and then come on again. So I'm not sure how long that's actually going to take. Okay, so the radiator fan just came on for the first time. It's gone off. Okay, so it's just come on again. Going off again, so now I can turn it off. Okay, so it's back on the ground now after heating up. Take the dipstick out. Let's check where it is on the level. It's probably going to be down. Yeah, it's very down. So I'll put some more in and check it again. Okay, it's hard to tell exactly because I wasted a little bit earlier by putting in too much, but I think it probably took a little bit over 4 liters. You can't really see the dipstick well enough on the camera to see that it's full, but it's currently up to the high mark. So just to check one more time, I'll run it, get it so the fan runs, and then just check it once more, and then we'll know for sure that it is perfect. So after getting it hot again, I checked the fluid level again, and it was down a little bit. So I filled it up again to about the high mark, because that's what the instruction says, is to between the marks when it's hot. So I would say that it's finished. The last thing to do is put this cover back on, and then it should all be good to go. Okay, that's all back together now. Tomorrow I'll just have to jack it up again and spray some degreaser under there to clean up the bit of fluid that's spilled. After adding in that extra bit of fluid at the end, I'd say it definitely took over 4 litres. So keep that in mind if you're doing it yourself. And here's the original filters. So I confirmed that this is the original filter because on the date stamp here it's got 2013 on it. So yeah, original filter, never been changed before in over 10 years. So I'd say that's definitely worth changing. And this filter here, it's hard to say how dirty that actually is, but like when we had it apart, it was pretty dirty inside. So I'm very happy that we've finally been able to do that. Now I need to go and clean my hands and go for a test drive. Okay, so I now have the GoPro strapped to the headrest of the passenger seat. I'm going to take it for a test drive. It's got a Japanese dash cam, so it likes to talk at me sometimes if it senses movement. So the Japanese guy's video said that changing the filters much improved the responsiveness of his transmission, but his had done a lot more Ks than mine, so I don't really expect anything different. I just wanted the transmission service, so yeah, everything seems to be working so far. So if I put it in neutral for a second. Seems to be good going in and out of drive. And accelerating. So I'd say that's been a very successful service on the transmission then. Everything seems to be working back to normal. Now that it's all finished, hopefully that was as interesting to watch as it was for me to do it.